So after all the glamour and all the discussions on the technology, we are going to discuss about global wars, which is a very pressing issue right now. And we have some amazing group of people here who are going to give their views about it. With all the background of the Ukraine wars and even the territory-related wars around Asia, that being the center. So I would like each one of you to please introduce yourselves and how have you been working in this area.
Good evening to all of you. I'm Pranav Pandya. I'm co-founder and chairman of a information technology company, Dev IT, since 1997. And we are end-to-end IT service provider, not only for the various states in the country, predominantly into e-governance, as far as India is concerned. But we also provide solutions to the overseas entities, mainly in North America, Middle East, a bit of it in UK and Australia. So that's about it, about the company. We also have another company known as Devix. I think one of my colleagues spoke in the first panel today. So that's it. That's about Dev IT. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Abigail, and I am a trauma-informed therapist. I am a psychotherapist working with several individuals. My lens of working is trauma-informed. I am a director at Mentis Cordis Foundation. And what we have been doing is also working with individuals, and I consult for organizations working towards social and community level interventions, where we focus on, that is why I think I'm also kind of looking at that perspective, how we can kind of look at community restoration and reconciliation. And my focus is how trauma influences our behavior, right? How we individuals have a baggage that we carry with us, and our behavior and our way of relationality and our connection and community is somehow has an impact which is trauma-based, and that is my focus. And I work with individuals and schools and corporates. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charu Mishra, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer of Dholakia Foundation. So in the foundation, we majorly work upon ecosystem restoration, and that is why I think this is very important for me to talk about that, how war has impacted environment over the period of time, and what we are doing in the terms of when we say ecosystem restoration in specific to Gujarat, and also how the lessons can be taken forward to other states and then country also. So today my focus will be more on environment, life above water, life underwater, and how all of us together can make a bigger change, and how youth has been a major role in tackling all of these issues at their own level, and how they have to be more upfront in tackling such issues more often. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I am Wing Commander Sangeet Sharma. I am a security risk management consultant and a success strategist. I am the founder of a company called Solve and Train Consultancy. But much before that, I was serving with the Indian Air Force as a logistics officer. I took a premature retirement from the Indian Air Force in 2011, and after that, I got an opportunity to work with Tata Group, Indigo Airlines, and TVS Supply Chain Solutions Limited. Having witnessed the Kargil War, and as a student of geopolitics, thank you very much. As a student of geopolitics, I shall be sharing my insights into the military life and the wars, and what are the consequences of wars and various facets attached with it. Thank you very much.
Okay, we are going to see a small video, and then we'll start the conversation.
This is war. Not a movie. Not a game. This is real. In the last century alone, over 108 million lives were lost to wars. In the past decade, over 2 million civilians have died, children, families, innocent lives wiped away. 40% of all casualties in modern wars are children. 70 million people, more than ever before, have been forced to flee their homes. More than the entire population of the UK. Even after the last bullet is fired, war never truly ends. 1 in 5 veterans suffer from lifelong PTSD. Some never recover. In Syria, 80% of children now live with toxic stress. A generation lost before it had a chance to live. The world spends 100 times more on war than on peace. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have rebuilt before. We have chosen peace before. Will we learn from the past? Or will we repeat it? The future is in our hands. What will you choose?
So as we saw in the video, wars are not just about, armed conflicts. It's far more than that. It disrupts the entire society. It disrupts the landscapes. It disrupts economies and entire nations. And from each one of you, with your diverse experience, we would like to know what is the impact of war in different areas.
Impact of war. So that's a very interesting question. And I think in the age of social media, you all are aware that there is a war going on in Ukraine. Russia attacked Ukraine in 2022, and in 2023, Hamas attacked Israel from Gaza Strip, and then Israel retaliated. So since there is so much to be read and seen on social media and on newspapers and various other streams of media, you all know what the consequences are. Russia has not won the war. Israel has not won the war. But without winning the war and being associated with the war for so many months, 3 years in fact for Russia-Ukraine war, the impact is that economic collapse in Gaza Strip, economic collapse in Ukraine, if not millions, then thousands dead. Children, they don't know what is to be done. Their lives are ruined, because even if they pick up their lives in some other country or somewhere, somehow, the trauma which they have borne for this war will never separate with them throughout their lives. So that is the impact of war. And the sad part is that none of the objectives by the adversaries have been met. Israel is intact, Gaza Strip is intact, Ukraine is there, and Russia is also there. The only silver lining is that nuclear arms have not been used in these wars till now. That's about from my side.
I see it from an environment perspective more like people and planet. So when we say how it has impacted environment, so it's very clear. Maybe all of us know that how war has impacted the environment. I don't have to tell it because social media, books, we read a lot, so we know that land degradation is there, deforestation is there, yet then you say air pollution is there, water contamination is there, toxic waste. During COVID, we say that wow, environment was very good because no people were traveling, this and that. But then it has another sort of impact on climate, which is bio-waste and toxic waste that was there. So wars can be of different type, and the impacts of war can also be a different type. Every time environment may not be impacted, but in different way it could. And then if you talk about economy and governance, then of course, during war you have trade that has been lost, your agriculture will be destroyed, your, economy, that means your daily earning or your employment will be lost. So all of these play a major role in, bringing down the economy of certain countries. Maybe there are countries that might face who are not involved in the wars, but also they are indirectly impacted by the wars that is happening. That Sir has mentioned right now, Russia, Ukraine, India felt it in different way, but we were not involved in any which way manner, but we felt the problem of that war on us. So it has those sort of impacts that we have to understand. It's not between two countries only. It has many, if you say maybe 10, 12, 13 countries are impacted with one war which is there. So we have to think on those lines also.
As Wing Commander and Charu mentioned, I agree and reckon with them. Most times we don't realize the cost of war, right? That we look at war as a financial thing, but it impacts generations. And my study and my work with people have also revealed that it is not, Sir mentioned that, there is trauma that is left with people. And I want to talk a little bit about what displacement does when a war is happening, a particular district is bombarded. We experience, and people are displaced. And that displacement, we don't even know, people who have been displaced internally might not know when they can go back, right? And in India has experienced such displacements. We experience that, and we know the trauma that comes with it. Be it with the Sindhi community, which had to migrate after partition, be it the Kashmiri Pandits who had to migrate. That displacement leaves with them a significant trauma, which we know even now, after 60 years, after 50 years, continues to impact, which becomes intergenerational trauma, which is also evident with Holocaust survivors, the Jewish Holocaust survivors. It lingers. And if I talk from a psychological perspective, and the video mentioned that PTSD is a very common symptom. Irritation, irritability, feeling lost, having dissociative spells where you have no idea where you are, where you might, those who are living in refugee camps, their children would experience regression, where they go back to the infant state. So things like bedwetting, things like we don't have any sense of control over their bowels or over their urinary bladder because their trauma is so deep. Women experience a lot of sexual abuse, sexual violence by the perpetrators, be it on both sides, which stories I might get into as the session progresses. But this is a very long-lasting, and as Charu mentioned, economic loss. And the feeling of alienation that we are alone, right? And suffering is on both sides. Like Sir mentioned, neither Israel has won, neither Palestine has won. They're both where they are. But lives have been lost. People's lives have been destroyed. So yeah, thank you.
I'm agreeing with all the panelists, but being the voice of industry, I need to speak on that count too. All points noted. War, in any case, is not at all a good thing to have. But what I have in particular realized from being a company owner, we are seeing a distinct slowdown in the spends that we get to see in the economy per se. Even Russia, Ukraine directly might not be, we as country might not be affected physically, but being just like India, all the other nations are also part of the global ecosystem now, as we call it, the digitally flat world. So one area is kind of in a turmoil, and the effects it actually affects in a cascading manner. We talk about those countries, then the sheer physical infrastructure gets damaged, the factories and the bridges and the roads, leading to the productivity loss out there, and therefore both the countries, whatever the loss they are getting affected with, also gets kind of, in a way, trickled down to the economy of the globe. Same goes for those two countries. Their spending on the defense will reduce their spending onto the other key sectors like health, education. Again, those are the key parameters for economic well-being of a country, or to that matter, nation. And now we are a one big nation, as I'd say, digitally flat world. The sheer workforce loss. Just imagine all of us, in case if we, God forbid, we face a war like that, the sheer workforce loss, because of the physical casualties as well as the economic casualty. There will be no work at all. So this all translates into a sheer economic impact which reduces the productivity at large of the country, of the world also. And we see trade disruption, the logistics disruption. So not at all something which augurs well for the entire world, globe, or to that matter, humanity overall, as my colleague here have mentioned. I think that is from my side.
Anybody from the audience who has experienced war in some form or has any questions related to further impact of war? Yes, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Vandan. It was an insightful conversation. My question is to Sangeet. Sangeet sir, is war an inevitable thing to happen?
Vandan, I am very sorry to say this. I'm not saying this as a military man, ex-military man, but as a very responsible citizen of the world. Wars cannot be avoided. They will not be avoided because, you see, if you look at the recorded history of human history of maybe 3,000, 4,000 years, you will find people waging wars, people trying to expand their territories, people trying to capture the resources, and this will keep happening. Only thing is that if at a global level, we start realizing, and I must admit that this starts from the younger generation who are currently in their 20s and 30s, and who will be the leaders of tomorrow. You all have to understand, and this is what I have covered in one of the later questions of the panel, which was planned to be asked. But you see, wars cannot be avoided till such time we all realize that the impact of war is tremendous for soldiers as well as for civilians, for everybody. It just results in devastation. Yes, some territories will be captured, but those territories will still remain part of the world. So who rules that territory really doesn't matter. What happens to the people there, that matters. I hope I have answered my question, Vandan.
So my question is to, again, Sangeet, sir. So there are a lot of innovation going on for science and tech, right? But I don't have knowledge that. Are there any innovation going on? Are there any research going on for that? Why this war happened? How we can stop this war? How we can protect this world? Are there going on? I'm just want to know that.
Well, I would, being from the tech point, and I was discussing with her, do we want to take it now or do we want to?
Yes, please go ahead, please.
Okay. So, I think the panel before us were discussing the nuances of AI. Yes, I wouldn't say that a well-established platform or a system is there, but definitely work is being done wherein, based on the past historical data, if the conflicts between two nations are not being resolved, and looking at their cultural differences or their past conflict differences and the past history, and the current scenario that they are passing through, probably a trend analysis can be worked out. The predictive aspect of the system can actually tell that if we do not bring them onto table, or we do not go for even digital diplomacy, as I would like to put it this way, then things can go bad. And so having such a scenario, yes, it would help us to at least curb the situation of the initial stage itself, as far as possible. But as the wing commander rightly said, ultimately the intrinsic nature of a human being, the Stone Age era DNA kicks in sometimes, and my right to have my territory and probably the difference of opinion settled in a Stone Age style prevails. So, but all said and done, technology and systems can be helpful. Too much reliance on that also is a question mark, but yes, they are there as a tool to help us.
So, if we want to, yeah, please go.
Yeah, thanks. So as a part, I'm just going to add an anecdote here. As a part of my higher education and research, I had the opportunity to live in Israel for a significant amount of time, for 6 years. And I have very closely witnessed the stories of Holocaust survivors. I had the opportunity to visit Jerusalem, West Bank, and everywhere you can see those footprints of the tragedies that are associated with the recurrent wars, as well as the stories of those Holocaust survivors. So definitely there is a very long-standing impact of all these, human casualties as well as cultural differences in particular. So yeah, I mean, that's just to add on to the discussion. Yeah.
Right, right. So thank you for sharing that. And I was, as we are discussing about how to heal, how to do reconciliation between individuals as well as between communities, like you were talking about the Sindhi community. And what kind of a perspective shift can happen, or as we were talking about the youth also, that what kind of mindset shift can happen for the youth, which can help avoid or reduce the intensity of wars, or create new channels of engaging nation to nation? What kind of perspective shift or mindset shift can happen?
Yeah, so I'll just begin. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you for sharing your story. I just want to begin with a little bit about, because you mentioned how can we heal. So first look at what is the disease, or what is the illness, right? Or what are we struggling with? And I just want to share that more often than not, as a community and community-based, if you look at interventions, or if you look at what are the challenges, and the struggle is that as human beings, we have a parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system. And when we are under stress, right, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in. The sympathetic nervous system is basically fight or flight. We are continuously very hyper-vigilant, right? We are hyper-vigilant about everything. So if you would tell me, I am not, say right now, I'm not in a war, right? But if I've experienced war, or if I have experienced war or displacement as a community, I am going to be hyper-vigilant. My focus only will be survival. And when I am focused only on survival, I will only look at mera kya hai, mera kya mil raha hai isse, right? What am I getting out of this? So we tend to then discriminate. We tend to then isolate, alienate. Whatever othering happens, I think it's a term that young people would be aware of. Othering happens a lot, where this is me, this is our community, this is us, and this is the other. And everything which is other, or we don't understand, is not good, right? So how can reconciliation happen in a place where everybody is in ghettos, where everybody is, if not physical ghettos, some cities also have physical ghettos like ours, and otherwise social ghettos. We only interact with people who we are comfortable with, our community, concept of samaj. Then where is the space? Where is the platform for reconciliation? Where do we have that space where we can actually connect, find that connection? So I feel as a community, we need to go from a survival mode to a mode where we want to thrive, where we want to create a global village, where we want to create a larger community. And that is where dialogues can take place, where community-based dialogues can actually heal. And it is an experiment in Rwanda, where Rwanda was very war-stricken, very conflict-stricken. And how did you bring, tribal connectivity is through community-based dialogues, is through restorative justice, where closure can take place. So I was just sharing with her, I mean, in Kashmir today, the concept of half widows exist, where they do not know where their husband is. If the husband is alive or dead, was taken for questioning, don't know. So now they are living in that constant space of being a half widow. They are not married because they don't have their spouse. They haven't heard about their spouse for years. They're not widows also because they don't know. So closure, providing closure. Human beings need closure, right? And closure helps us move on. So restorative justice, finding closure for individuals. If we look at, child soldiers, if we look at from an African perspective, child soldiers are big phenomena there, where children are, brainwashed and asked to become soldiers. They don't understand. And then how do we come back from that? As a combatant also, there's a lot of moral injury, where we feel, okay, we did something so wrong. How do we reconcile with that, right? And so there is a lot of trauma which needs dialogues, connection, creating platforms. So we as a community, as a society, can create those platforms for inter-community dialogues, for, just understanding that they are not the other. Like Sangeet sir said, that till we do not understand that it is going to affect a part of this world, till we do not truly become global citizens, till we do not truly become, and that is the tragedy of war. We become very isolated. We become very individualistic. And I want to also take a moment to talk about war not just being very international, right? It's also being internal, be it insurgency, be it militancy. It creates a sense of isolation, which kind of isolates you because you don't understand. If I can see you, if I can see your struggles, if I can see your pain, then I can maybe empathize with it. But if I am so cut off, so isolated from this world, how do I understand that my othering is actually hurting you, right? And that is why radicalization also takes place. Because we are so isolated from each other that we tend to radicalize more, because that is the identity I have. So I may as well just hold on to it. As human beings, we need to make meaning, right? We need purpose. And then our tragedy then only becomes our purpose. And I think everybody would have seen Gangs of Wasipur. है ना? उसमें ना बदला ही मेरा मकसद है जीवन का. That the protagonist says that. उसका जीवन का मकसद. He had 2 children. He had a wife. He had 2 wives. But none of them were important. His main goal was the badla. And that is what happens to us as human beings. We focus so much on that identity of trauma that everything else doesn't matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
So adding a little bit to what you said, safe space, I think we all had experienced that during the pandemic of corona, which was virtually like a war, it was waged on the globe per se. All of us faced it. And that's where the technology helped us. We were able to see each other, talk to each other without being physically in the same room or being near to each other, as that was the required norm. So in a war-torn country where 2 communities or the people on the either side have been fed with such misconception and misthoughts, as the lady just explained, to counteract that, probably the digital safe space or a digital diplomacy, as I keep on saying, is an ideal way out to resolve at least discuss about the conflicts, and they can share what they are facing on the either side, so then they would realize the problem is same that they are facing. The empathy would be created between them, and that would help in resolving the scenario. At least before bringing them physically in one room and they start blowing fists against each other, it's better to bring them on the digital mode. Same thing is the humanitarian aid. Probably during the war-torn days, the technology again helps. In the right time, thanks to the help of surveillance via satellite or drones, if you bring in the humanitarian aid to the required set of people in the fastest possible way, I'm sure the tensions on either side can be kind of diluted, and again, chance of bringing people on the same table or same room increases. There are quite a few other points also, but I think that kind of adds it. We are very inching towards the closer,
Yes.
and before, I think this should be my last question, and there are others to talk. So just like to say thanks to O2H for the 7th conclave, and congratulations to you. Thank you all.
I can think of few steps that we can take. From my experiences, I'm saying this because I have been to very, high-profile global platforms where, COP29, COI, and all of this happening, and I see very few youth from India, being a part of such global platforms wherein all of these pointers are being discussed. So I feel like people from other countries are there, youth from other countries are there, they are putting up their points, they know what they are facing. We also know what's happening within the country and what is the impact that we have from other countries. But I do not see much people or much voices on those platforms from our country. So I think on country level, when I say this, that means more youth should be involved in such dialogues because they know that what's happening, what's wrong, what's right. They do not follow everything which is there on social media. They can figure out, no, this is something which is false and this is something which is right. So I think as a country, we should give them a more chance to be a voice for our country and speak about what's happening, which is true, which can be, tackled immediately or maybe discussed upon. So, and secondly, community engagement, as ma'am rightly said. So she mentioned about Rwanda, where women-led initiatives were taken during the time of genocide that happened in 1994. So all of these are the good examples that we have. We just have to go back and read that what happened in different countries and how they have tackled it. So there are examples that we can see in different platforms available. We just have to Google. Of course, we can watch movies. Okay, but we can also give some time in reading so that we get to know the good examples that can be, taken as a steps that we can also do as a country. And no, if not, then of course we have some learnings from those examples that are available. Thank you.
Please, Prashant has a question.
I got two questions. One to Commander Sangeet. We're always in a state of war readiness in India with Pakistan and China. What can we do to kind of ensure a long-term peace? And then a second question to any of you, really. If you were face-to-face with Putin, what would you tell him? And what would you guide him in terms of, he's got a very fixed view of the world. How would you change somebody's like that? How do you evolve and change their mentality for one of peace rather than making war?
So I actually got only the first part of your question. I'll answer that first. What can be done to avoid wars with Pakistan and China? So I'm a trained combatant. So my job has been, and it has been, now not anymore, but to be part of the tool which wages the war or part of the tool which defends the country. So for me to comment upon it in a very different way would be very difficult. Frankly speaking, with Pakistan, all they have to do is just give back our piece of Kashmir to us, which is Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Simple. That's as simple as that. They have not gained anything by occupying that piece of land which they call Azad Kashmir. We call it Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And if you go through the history, then maybe some amount of assertive leadership, had it been there in 47, 48 when this entire thing happened, then 1949 UN resolution passed, then this piece of land was lost by us. Some assertive leadership would have happened, we wouldn't have lost it. Now I, as a citizen, see a ray of hope. Maybe, yes, this will happen. But for Pakistan, first thing they have to do is that they have to simply surrender POK. Second thing which they have to do is spend all their resources on their development. Not to spread terrorism in this country. Yes, I mean, Pakistan is now called a nursery of terrorists. I mean, world over, they are identified as people, as a country where terrorists are born, they are bred, they are, saved and all, and they are given shelters and all. So that is something which they have to change. That entire mindset, that entire outlook has to change. And I'm actually amazed that Pakistan is not getting the signals which are loud and clear from all over the world. With the exception of China, nobody is their ally anymore. And Chinese people, they are allies for a reason. They want to expand their influence. They want to expand their influence not to wage wars, but to gain economic dominance. And the CPAC, which you all aware of, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which runs from part of our country, because I consider POK as part of my country, that is for economic dominance of China. The Gwadar port, which China has developed near Karachi, that is part of the Chinese plan, larger plan in next 50 years to dominate the trade routes through sea. So that is something which Pakistan has to realize, that India is ultimately a more prosperous country. We are better placed. We have got better education system, better healthcare system. We have progressed much faster and much better than they have. So a sane Pakistani, I am talking of the leadership, should ally with us. Simple. That is as far as Pakistan is concerned. China will have to also understand that waging a war with India will not give them a single inch of piece of land anymore. Aksai Chin happened because that time the army was not prepared, frankly speaking. 1962, the army was not prepared. The Air Force couldn't have been pressed into service because in that altitude, our Air Force planes couldn't have flown. So, and there was no engagement with the Indian Navy. So that piece we have lost. They should ideally also give it back. That is also part of our country. But for China, they will have to realize that irrespective of the fact that they can build up their military resources from Arunachal to Ladakh and then to northern part of Ladakh, they can never in fact enter into India again and retain any piece of territory. It's not possible. Indian army is now very well prepared. We have a mountain division and we are getting stronger by day. Our soldiers are much better trained than Chinese soldiers in mountain warfare. Our continuous presence in Siachen Glacier has trained thousands of soldiers for fighting a war in those kind of heights. So with China, the major thing is that we have to fight a war with them at a very high altitude. And high altitude warfare is a very different type of warfare. India is better prepared for that matter. As far as their 5th generation and 6th generation fighter weapon platforms development is concerned, none of these systems have been tested ever in war. Whether it is J-20 or whether it is J-31, none of them ever. What we have the best as of now, Rafale, is a 4.5 generation aircraft. This has been pressed into service. It has seen action in Middle East. So we are, I will not say Indian Air Force is as prepared as we should be because we are shot by 11 squadrons. But here also, our Rafale can take off from a lower altitude because Leh and Thois are the 2 Air Force stations from where they have to take off. They can carry higher payload into Russia. And Russian Air Force, despite being larger in number, has to take off from a higher altitude. When a higher altitude is used for an aircraft to take off, it can not carry more than a specified number of bombs and missiles, which is called a payload. So the advantage is clearly with India. That is why Chinese army, they retreated. There was a face-off, I think 3 years back. There was a face-off in which we inflicted more damage than they did. And then through dialogue, they retreated. But China is an adversary which we cannot trust. That is for sure. So for them, for Chinese people, the best thing is that they should realize that India is a wonderful market for them. And that is where the communities, that is where the trade, that is where so the economic forums should conversate with each other and try to convince their respective governments that fighting Arunachal Pradesh or Ladakh is not the way forward, is not the future. The future is development and progression of both the countries, all the communities which stay in these countries. So that's how it is.
So I'll quickly post, please. Another question by Prashant about Putin, or any world leader, how do we tell them that we need peace? Right?
So as far as Putin is concerned, to tell him something, you have to first learn Russian. So jokes apart, Putin, I really don't understand. See, he annexed Crimea, which is South Ukraine, it's part of South Ukraine, South Ukraine. And Crimea is a place where Crimean War was fought about 100 years back. So that is an area which is full of minerals, rich minerals, and that is also a trade route, the sea around it. So that was won by Russia, and Ukraine had made noise that time, but nobody heard him. And now he is not allowed to speak also. We all know that. So how do you tell Putin is simply that, NATO. US is still part of NATO, fair enough. But even if US de-aligns with him, US is already taking a stance which is pro-Putin. NATO also has to take a stance which is pro-Putin, and NATO has to tell Putin that, see, whatever part of Ukraine you have taken, you can consider giving it back, or you can have, some kind of dialogue with Ukraine and set up some kind of team which discusses this through dialogue. But definitely take away your forces and give assurance that Ukraine will never become part of NATO. Putin, I don't think, will do anything after that, because they have also in 3 years spent a lot of money, and they have consumed a lot of stockpiles during last 3 years. Their factories will have to work for next 10 years to, bring up that inventory level. But yes, as very rightly said by my co-panelists, dialogues and something which is there in common for development of humanity across the borders will reduce the impact of war, will reduce the possibilities of future wars.
If I can just add to what Sir said, I think the intentionality is the key, right? Intentionality is what will change or bring any kind of difference. If I'm intentional about having peace, if I'm intentional about actually, so there is no point of having endless dialogues. We keep on having dialogues, but if there is no intent of actually wanting to work on it, there is no point. I mean, we can go and sit in a room and, just have small talk and come back. And that's what happens with so many of these talks, right? So intent behind actually, reducing terrorism, reducing war, reducing the cost and the impact, the human impact that it has. So if there is intent, I feel a lot can happen. That is what us as human beings are, right? We work with our intent. If we don't have an intrinsic interest in actually having peace, we will not. Like Sir said, we will not. We will endless be at unrest and war because we have no intent. So just want to add that. Thank you.
Categorically about Putin, I thoroughly agree with Devi Commander. NATO is the way out. Once NATO assures that Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO, I'm sure he's going to stop.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for the great discussion. And for me, the takeaway of this, like we say, there is a quote that what we actualize is what we focus on. Wherever the intention flows, that is what you manifest. And if the intention is peace, then that's what we are going to create at all the levels in life, be it in ourselves, be it in our homes, our country, everywhere. So thank you so much, everybody, for the wonderful conversation. Thank you, audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.